Welcome to another episode of the Cinematic Bridge, filming in Europe. Tonight we are thrilled to have a very special guest, Tracy Martin, Hollywood coach, comedy actress, and voiceover artist. Tracy grew up immersed in entertainment and she wouldn't live without it. Her unique coaching has helped her students succeed worldwide in film, TV, animation, and commercials. Many have gone on to work with Spielberg, J.J. Abrams, Zendaya, and projects for HBO, Netflix, Disney. Some even earning Emmy and Children's Award nominations. Beyond technique, Tracy inspires her students to dream big, stay positive, and manifest their goals. A mindset she believes is as essential as skill in Hollywood. Tonight, she'll share insights on acting techniques, voiceover mastery, audition strategies, accent, mindset, and navigating the business of entertainment. Please join me in welcoming Tracy Martin. Tracy, thanks for joining us.
Charlie, that was so good. I think that we should just end there. So I'll be going now. How can I follow up with that?
Thank you. Absolutely. So what's very different about you is you actually grew up in the entertainment world. And so I'm wondering, how did that shape your passion for acting and voiceover?
Well, I think the passion you either have or you don't have. I did my first play when I was 6 years old, and I shouted all of my lines. I still remember my one big line. I played an elf, by the way. And I think I really was hooked after that with acting and singing. So that's where the passion came from. As far as my work ethic, I think growing up in the industry taught me that you approach it like any other job. You do your homework. Not that you take it for granted or anything, but you do your homework, you prepare, you show up on time, you're nice to people. My father always used to say, be nice to the people you meet on the way up, because you're going to meet the same people on the way down. And I've kind of lived by that. He had a big career in broadcasting, so I was just raised around radio and TV stations, and then acted on my own.
I really love that saying. And I love that you started at 6, just kind of yelling. I had a similar, like my first play, I just yelled my lines and everyone stared at me, and then it continued. Similarly for passion, like, you don't know if like that kind of has to come with. I remember when I was doing comedy school, they told us, like, we can't really teach you to be funny, but we can make you better at it. We kind of expect you to come with that. Yeah, I've seen that as well. Now, you said that you want Hollywood to be like it used to be. What does that mean to you? And like, how do you see the industry evolving? Because it's definitely changing.
Wow, that's a multi-part question, really, because there's so many things in Hollywood that have changed, from where projects are being made, to the type of projects being made, to the style of acting that's being portrayed. So it's kind of a mixed bag. I will address right away, I guess, that filming has greatly expanded, right? So a lot of projects are no longer in Hollywood, much to the dismay of people such as myself, who have built life and career here, and that's how we pay our bills. So that's been quite tough. On the other hand, just speaking about US actors, it's opened a world of difference for actors who don't live in LA, who live in small towns around the country, because now they send in self-tape auditions. You used to have to be in LA. So now everything's pretty much at home, and they'll make contact and then fly for jobs. I do hope more production comes back to LA. LA makes it easier. At the same time, I'm adapting. I'm a big believer in adapting to change if you want to stay relevant. And, I look forward to working with people such as yourself in Spain, and projects that are going on in Europe, and all over the world, really.
Right. And so it's changed what's being filmed in LA. Even you said that, like, there's this new vertical shorts thing has become big. And when I was also looking around, I was like, well, where did they film Dune? And Dune, like, certain things you do have to film in certain places, like the desert. Maybe you could do it in California, but they went to certain places. So Can you talk about how you've seen, like, when you're looking around, you can see that work has moved and changed as well?
Yes, I mean definitely. Now there's let's take away the tax rebates and the financial cost of shooting in LA. Let's just take that out of it, because there's so much realism now in projects as far as acting style and as far as how projects actually look to the audience. They do want to not be on a soundstage for the most part in movies, right? They want to be out there filming and showing glorious parts of the world. And, Elia Kazan, if you go way back in American film history, if you look at a movie called On the Waterfront, which is a very famous movie, he actually was one of the first directors to bring real people into his film. He had some real dock workers from New Jersey and filmed on docks in New Jersey. That was like unheard of in the 1950s, right? But now they think that's part of the authenticity of filmmaking, is to go where, although I was watching a show the other day and it certainly looked like it was, what city was it supposed to be? May have been LA even, or New York. And I guess they did some of the exteriors there, but all of the interiors were in Vancouver.
Oh, interesting.
So that's another thing. Sometimes they'll do exteriors in one location, one city, one state, one country, and then the interiors will be more local.
I remember seeing a Will Ferrell movie. It was supposed to be based in Montreal, but it
Mm.
made no sense if it went from like here to panned, and if you know Montreal, it made no sense. But it was like the prettiest, building here and the prettiest building there. So it can be up in the air about where to film, I guess, depending how much you want to put into green screen. But
Right.
when it comes to, let's say you're filming on location or international, something still applies. Why is it that mastering the American accent is so crucial for actors? Is it, yeah, well, I've heard you say that. And why would
Yes.
you say so?
I'm going to use an example of two girls that I work with in Sydney, Australia. And most of the time, when they send me their audition material for coaching sessions that I'm to do with them, it actually requests from the casting director, do one take in your native accent, do one take in an American accent. And you have to be perfect with your American accent.
So it's coming from the work, like basically the people who are looking for talent, they really want the American accent. Is that right?
They do. For a lot of projects, I'm not saying that no actors can work in their native accent, but for a lot of projects, they kind of want it to be anywhere USA. So they are looking for kind of a standard neutral American accent.
Is it
It's
possible?
important. I would say it's very important for anybody around the world from Europe. If you want to get more work in America, have the American accent. If you want to just stay in your little niche, then you don't have to. But if you want to book more jobs, I would definitely perfect your American accent.
Is it possible to give a quick tip if someone's got like an accent and they're trying to make it more American?
Um, most people lose their accents at the end of sentences. They
Oh,
like they like peter out. I don't know if they run out of air or energy, or they just think, oh, I got through most of the sentence. So that's all. I'm always listening for that, always. And I would say, because there's so much American TV that's available, I'm a really big believer in how much you can do on your own, your time schedule, for free. So, and nowadays, when I was, give you an example of an exercise that I always used to do, but now it's so much easier because everything has subtitles or closed captions. But I used to put on TV and just walk around and listen to it and repeat the lines back in whatever character voice or whatever accent the actor was doing. Now you actually can follow along with the subtitles. So you can listen to the actor, you could read as they're performing, you could practice it back. I just think you have to listen a lot and practice, practice, practice. Some actors choose to stay in their American accent all day on set, not just when they're filming, so they don't lose it.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, I remember hearing stories of actors staying in character, and but accent is tricky. You don't want that to like slip. Before we go to exceptions, we've got a live comment. Liz is watching live. Hi, Liz. She's asking, why are there so many British actors in U.S. movies with American accents? And my first thought is Spider-Man, the new Spider-Man, right? He's from London and puts on an American accent. Do you know?
Well, British actors, oh God, I hope no one in America hates me right now, but British actors really are trained so well. They're so disciplined. They have, I was telling my husband yesterday, I feel like a lot of actors, not all, no one get upset at me, but a lot of actors here want to be famous, whereas a lot of actors in Britain want to be actors. They want to perfect their craft.
Yeah, I remember hearing about Benedict Cumberbatch and how they really go for theater first and it's really intense training, and then once after they've kind of done all that, then they go to the U.S. Does that ring true?
Oh, absolutely. And you know who else is like that? I've noticed Canadians.
Ooh,
Canadians and Brits have very similar backgrounds as far as training, education, working on their craft. By the time I get these people, it's great because I can just layer on top of their acting skills and teach them audition technique and teach
wonderful.
them hopefully how to book jobs and make strong choices on camera for their self tapes. But as far as the craft, yeah, Brits, I have to say, Brits really are quite good. And then again, the movie's supposed to usually be in anywhere USA, right? It's not supposed to take place in the UK. So there again, they need their perfect American accent.
Great. Now, I want to ask you about exceptions because when thinking about this, I thought like Antonio Banderas, like Puss in Boots, like famously has a Spanish accent, and Javier Bardem, famously Spanish, Salma Hayek, Penelope Cruz. So, is that luck? Is there a method? Is there a niche market? What do you think?
These, of course, are only my opinions. So I don't know this for a fact, but I do think, yes, there are always exceptions to the rule. I think they are, in addition to being such skilled actors, I think they kind of came up in a time where maybe it was a little more accepted to not have to be that versatile. I mean, they're versatile within their acting skills, don't get me wrong, but they're not trying to fit into 100 different roles. They're being hired for their talent, their look, and part of their personality and where they're from. They represent where they're from.
Yeah,
That's
I
what
think
I
so.
think.
Yeah, I even think of Anna de Armas in a way, like she's got a distinct way of speaking. And so, what do you think? Would you just, for anyone training, they want the American accent and their authentic accent, and so that they can do an authentic as well as like almost like a character role? Is that the safest place to be?
I would think so. I mean, unless you can bypass all of the, small parts and shoot straight to being a movie star, which is getting harder and harder to do, by the way. I would say again, versatility is your best bet. Also, if you getting signed with an American agent, they are going to want you to perfect your American accent because they want to, the agents and managers are only making money when you book. So the more jobs you can book, the more money they're going to make. So they
Okay.
want to be able to get you deals, not just in a Brit movie if you're Brit.
Yeah. I always loved characters and accents. And so for me, I mean, it's something interesting to do, but it is a barrier if it's not your thing, if you're just like authentic. Another potential
Some students,
barrier.
sorry to interrupt, yeah, but some students tell me that in the classes that I teach, if I say we're going to do accents one week, they, no, I can't do an accent. I can't do an accent. I said, well, the first thing you have to do is stop telling yourself you can't do an accent. And then we have to try, and granted, some people have better ears than others, but I think most people can do it.
Well, it's really hard work. And then so you'd really want to kind of invest that in something that will probably get used. But I remember when we were messing around with different accents, someone was like, okay, do a Jamaican accent. And like I tried my hardest. And everyone just laughed and said, we're not doing that then. And then so like I got better at it later. Same thing with the British accents. But it just really does open possibilities. And if you can't, then you're stuck in whatever accents you can do.
Right. And I will recommend for anyone studying accents, I would suggest to always have a catchphrase in each accent you do, which is something, one sentence you fall back on for each accent that immediately, same thing with character voices for animation, have one sentence that immediately gets you into the character and the accent.
Did you do that? Like when we were speaking earlier, you had like a kind of teenage girl outrage thing. Was that like a line, like a practice line, or was that just improv?
uh, Improv and lots of experience being around, teenage girls or young women with attitude. Sorry, but
Well, fair enough, because that's my question. So the next barrier really is age, because age is a barrier for film, but not as much for voiceover. So how does voiceover then make you more free compared to like acting on camera?
actually, Charlie, good question, because that has changed, much to the dismay of actors such as myself. But again, because we're going for realism, authenticity, they often now will specifically say in a character breakdown for a child or a teenager, it will say real kids only.
Because your teenage girl like sold me, if so that's I guess they really so certain projects are totally authentic then I guess.
Yeah, certain projects are totally authentic. I also have the benefit of, I work with almost every age, and there's such a subtle difference in point of view between a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old, a 12-year-old, a 13-year-old, a 21-year-old, a 25-year-old. Like I play a game with myself, trying to figure out a child, teen, or young adult's age, and I'm usually right. They each have their own attitude, they each have their own point of view, they each use different, I'll say, flavors, how they speak. It's very interesting to observe so much, so that always helped me pick up the voices. But a lot of times now, yeah, they want real kids, real teens. And then this is interesting too, the roles that are in animation for, I'll say, young adults, where they want somebody 18 and over to play 16 to 18, those used to kind of go to anybody. So like if I could just if I could just like make it believable, I mean that was a little cartoonish, but then I could theoretically have the part. But now with social media and Comic-Con and some of these big animation festivals, they want the stars of the animated shows to go out and do appearances. So a lot of times they're picking gorgeous TV and
People
film
who look like us.
actors.
They're choosing people who look like us. Is that what you're saying?
Well, maybe you. Definitely me. Yeah.
Okay, so that's interesting. So they'll think, okay, so if someone has to, because like we're gonna do marketing's so important. If they're gonna go to like events, live events, then yeah, we want them to be, beautiful and young
20,
and
25 and gorgeous. Yeah.
have a TikTok account that with followers.
Exactly. Yeah. Social media, big.
Now, I know you have a hero that was a late bloomer, and I'd like you to talk about her because a lot of people are like, "Oh no, like I don't have TikTok, like I'm not 20." Like, can you tell me about your late blooming hero?
Are you referring to Lucille Ball?
I believe so. The one you told me about, I think it was yesterday, who's 90 something and is just starting to get big gigs.
You mean I thought you meant my hero in terms of all performance, Lucille Ball from I Love Lucy. No, June Squibb. Well, yes, June Squibb. Wow. So June has been working for, I don't know, her whole life, most of her life, half of her life. June is now, I believe, 95. I don't know her, but I've followed her career, and she's always had some very nice supporting roles, co-stars, guest stars, that kind of thing. All of a sudden, when June hit age 94, she had her first starring role in a film. And now she has her second at 95. Scarlett Johansson um, apparently just directed. I've been reading about it. I want to see the movie. But yeah, so Scarlett Johansson just directed her in her second lead. If you have the passion, if you have the talent, if you're still breathing and there are still opportunities for you, I don't see why you can't do this forever.
I think that's great. I mean, I was impressed because, uh, why would we give up then if she's like 94, 95 and she's doing big projects and she's enjoying it? Like, who am I to stop? And who is anyone who's like thinking about it but not sure?
Listen, my big game plan is to outlive all of my competition. I will be the only one left at 85 or 90, and they will have to cast me. So
Well,
keep
you're
going.
you're in a race with Miss Squibb there. So
Yeah.
now, the difference between voiceover and on-screen acting, I'm wondering about what you think the difference is, because what I've done kind of voiceover, and people have been thought it was funny that like I'm not acting with my face at all. What are the differences for you between the two, acting for screen and then voiceover acting?
Okay. Well, pardon me for contradicting your style, Charlie. I respect everyone's own style, but I actually teach when you're doing voiceovers to act it out in your body and to feel it and to show it, because when you're doing voiceovers, you're only acting with your voice, right? That sounds simple, but it's almost like you're acting on the words in voiceover, and on camera, you're acting in between the words. You can react in between words, right? You can react when the other person's speaking. In voiceover, everything has to be right on the words, and you hear everything. Um, like if I say, hey, Charlie, come over here. That's a line. Or I would say, but if I was auditioning for that line for a voiceover, I would say, hey, Charlie, come over here. And automatically the line sounds so different, right? I mean, I wasn't trying.
Yeah, I actually heard the difference. Actually, so my next question is related to this. What are the most common mistakes actors make in auditions or voiceovers? Is this one of them where you should be like you should be full on acting even if they don't see you?
Yes. Now I want to say, before someone tells me not all voiceover anymore is that animated, I do understand that. But even when it's real, the audiobooks now, or lots of dramatic podcasts that are like old radio shows, which I happen to love. Um, yes, it's not what they call cartoony. It's more of what they call a grounded read. But still, you have to bring all of your acting skills. You have to bring all of your acting skills. I do have a story. We could get to it later, but remind me. It has to do with acting skills and manifesting coming together for a big voiceover job.
Well, it's interesting. Maybe we can start with, because I know a lot of entertainment lawyers are listening. So
Oh,
manifesting is a word that actors use that I found that like non-actors don't tend to use as much.
oh,
So for the lawyers in the audience, when you say manifesting, actually, yeah, tell that story, because that'll explain exactly it. So you did a manifesting exercise with your class, right? Is this
I
the
did
story?
that. Yes, the one I was just referring to is a different story, but I'll talk about the manifesting exercise I did with my class, because it was just such a feel good story. So for those of you who don't know much about manifesting, they call it the law of attraction. I'm way simplifying this, but basically energy responds to energy, right? So if I'm feeling good and I'm feeling positive, the idea is I'm going to attract good and I'm going to attract positive, as opposed to if I sit all day complaining and I'm negative, then probably I'm going to attract more of that, right? Now, here's where it gets difficult. One, you can't just sit on the couch and say, I'm manifesting that Steven Spielberg calls me and wants me to have a spot of tea with him. No, that's not how it works. So you still have to do the work. You do the work. You do the legwork. You do work on your craft, but you keep your positivity. You keep what they call your vibration high. You keep the fun. You keep the joy. That's really important. And then the final thing, this is really hard. And this is why it worked in my class the other day and it doesn't work for a lot of people. You have to keep the intention without the attachment. And it's very hard to do, especially as a performer, as an actor. You want that job sometimes so desperately. But in the law of attraction, like anything you want that badly, you're just like suffocating. You're suffocating. I'm a big NBA fan. Go Lakers! New season starting. Uh, and my favorite player and one of my favorite people of all time is Kobe Bryant. And I will never forget, we were in a very tense game 7 against the hated Celtics. And wow, he couldn't make a shot to save his life. And he's brilliant. Brilliant. Why? He wanted that championship so badly that literally the ball was bouncing off the rim. He said it in his post-game interview. He said, I wanted it so much. And I thought, yeah, that's why it didn't work. Now, luckily we won and teammates helped him out and got him back to his good place where he started scoring again. But that's kind of a law of attraction. You're supposed to have the intention, do the work without that attachment. Let it be free and trust that whatever path you're being led to is the right one.
So manifesting theoretically is the idea like I'm going to work towards an outcome and I'm going to be positive and do the work. And then
Right.
by the time I kind of get there, it will have manifested. It will have appeared, right?
Exactly.
And your story is you did like an exercise similar to that with your class.
Yes.
And someone gave you feedback about what happened after. And what did they say?
Yes, it was amazing. It was a 24-hour turnaround of manifesting. So I teach a tween class on Zoom, a teen class on Zoom, and then a young adult class in person. And for my teen and tween classes, I did an exercise last week where they had to make their bed. They had to mess up their bed, then make their bed, but all with different intentions and different kind of through lines. Like, for example, one time they made their bed and their boyfriend or girlfriend had just sent them a text that they were breaking up with them. So how does that inform how you make the bed, right? How's your body language or emotional language? So we went through various things. And then the last one I said, okay, now you're going to make the bed like you woke up and you found out you booked a lead in a film you wanted. How does that come out in how you make the bed? How does that shape your day? So we did the exercise and my teen class was having so much fun with it. And one girl said to me, Miss Tracy, wouldn't it be great if we made our bed like that every day? And I said, I never thought of that. How would my day change if I was making my day? I just booked a job. I just booked the job I wanted, right? All of a sudden, talk about positive energy. So I said, you know what? You're absolutely right. I said, we could all try that. She said, yeah, we can manifest it. I said, sure, let's go for it. Let's try manifesting. And she said, I'm going to start tomorrow morning. And it was funny because another girl in class said she thought maybe she would be like jinxing herself. She didn't want to do it. So I had different reactions, but the girl that said she was going to do it sent me an email at the end of the very next day. She said, Miss Tracy, you're not going to believe it. I got up this morning. I made my bed like I had booked a voiceover, and I just got a call that I booked an animated series, and it's for a really big company. And she said, I honestly thought I bombed the audition. We're always hard on ourselves as actors. She said, I turned it in late. I didn't think it was my best performance. And she said, and I booked. And I just thought that was so great. Obviously, she's also talented. She does her work, you know. But the idea that she got up that morning and she's like, I booked a job. I booked a voiceover job. And then she did.
I think lawyers and actors have that where you're so hard on yourself, it can easily become negative. And
Right.
I think that happens both.
Yeah, self-talk, bad self-talk is, it's bad.
Yeah.
I mean, it can really bring you down. And so many of the actors I work with do it. I really try to change their mindset and change their vibration and be positive. And I made everybody jump up last week, the beginning of a new session, and scream, "We're back!" Because we had taken the summer off, and they were all like, you know, looking at me like she's crazy. But I want to get that energy and fun going, you know?
Absolutely. Well, my next questions are actually about auditions, like exercises and tips. So, what can actors do to make them more confident and authentic? So, exercises or tips specifically for auditions. Is that something you focus on?
Yes, but but I would say confidence, a lot of it comes from who you are and knowing yourself really well, and not being desperate for a job, which again is really hard to do when you have to pay the rent. I get it. I really get it. But that's what starts bringing people down, I think. And then they start losing their confidence because, again, now they're holding on so tightly. And then they start worrying about every choice they made. So many people tell me they book when they're just like, I'm just going to go in and have fun. You know?
And is that kind of related to first impressions? Like, what would a casting director notice in the first 30 seconds? Or how could you make a strong impression? Is it about congruency and alignment with like who you really are, would you say?
I think in a slate it is. The slate is many times like your name, where you live, and your height. For example, hi, I'm Tracy Martin. I'm 5'1" and I live in Los Angeles, California. And
You
it's
look at least 5'7".
right. I feel so big. Thank you, Charlie. But that's a typical slate, and that was a very neutral slate. But if it's commercial, if it's a comedy audition, I'm like, hey, have fun. I know somebody who dances in the beginning of their slates, you know, show some personality. So sometimes I'm really big about showing your unique personality and your confidence in your slate. That's the first thing they see. Sometimes they go right to the performance tape because often you're submitting both of those tapes separately. And I'm a very big believer in a moment before, what we call a moment before in acting, which is if my scene starts with me opening the door and you're selling chocolate to me, what was I just doing? Did I just get bad news on the phone? Am I opening the door crying because somebody I really love just died? Or am I so harried because, you know, the kids are crying and the dog's barking? And it's like, yes, you know, there's a pre-life. You didn't just start there at the door.
That's
What
a great
happened
that's
before?
a great tip. I heard Matthew McConaughey talked about he did that a moment before thing in the Dazed and Confused kind of drive up in the car thing. And right before he goes, all right, all right, all right. He had like this whole thing of like, I just bought groceries and now it's time to pick up.
There you go.
You know,
Yep.
and so that's interesting. I didn't know there was a name for it. So probably that's probably the exercise. Like before you go on, what's my moment before?
I think so. When people are new and starting with me, I make them go through great detail and write it all out and write about their day and their environment and kind of call it a backstory with what has happened to you. What led you up to this moment is always my question.
Great. Now I want to ask you about handling rejection. How? Which, I mean, if you can't do, you're in trouble. So, how do you teach actors, especially kids or young adults, not to take rejection personally?
Rejection is not personal. You're not going on a date with them, you're auditioning for them. They don't know you, right? Many, many years ago, when I was a young tad coming to Los Angeles, I went to a lot of panels to learn from people. And I remember so clearly one casting director, I forget who she was, she said, "It's not rejection, it's selection." And I thought, of course. Of course it is. Why didn't I never think of that? Right? They're selecting the person that they feel is best for the job. Unfortunately, there's a lot of other things that go into it. And maybe the producer needed to repay a favor from his neighbor's goddaughter's second cousin removed to live 3 doors down from his aunt. I don't know. This town is wacky. So, but that has nothing to do with you. So my advice always to my students, and I love starting this with really young kids, 5 and 6, you do the best, you prepare as well as you can, you go in or you get on tape, you do the best job you can with the strongest choices, and you let it go and you move on to the next one. And if you do not book that one, that's okay, because your ultimate goal is making a fan of the casting director or the producer or the director. Building relationships in Hollywood is very, very important. Do you know how many times a student of mine has made strong choices in an audition, showed how talented they are, and wound up not getting that role in the project, but they brought them back for a different role?
I'm
Let
guessing a lot.
a lot. Let the casting director figure out where you belong. That's not your job. Don't get so hung up on, what the breakdown says. What if I get a breakdown tomorrow and I'm supposed to be 5'10"? Well, that's a problem. So all I could do is be myself.
I will say it never stopped like Tom Cruise or Natalie Portman. I think they're both like needed a series of boxes. Um,
I always stand on apple boxes or sit on pillows. It's amazed me. I wonder if people are getting more accepting of short people, though. The last few projects I've worked on, no one made me do that, and I was shocked. I was like, really? It's okay that I'm this short? Okay, great.
Wonderful. Well, I was wondering because we're a cinematic bridge. What are
Hmm.
the differences between working in Europe and Hollywood? Would you say for voice or just actors in general?
I would like to know that answer myself. I don't exactly know. I know Europe to here, but I don't know here to Europe, right? So that's something that I would like to discover. Again, I feel like we better all brush up on our accents. I will say, having worked, this is the business side of things, having worked with producers in other countries, we do all have our protocols. And we, like in America, obviously, especially somebody like myself, I can be kind of like factual and give you my opinion straight out. I don't sugarcoat things. So in other cultures, maybe they're a little more polite or not as what they would call pushy. I mean, I've worked with people in England, I've worked with people in France, and you definitely have to learn to respect other cultures and the way business is held somewhere else.
Though a significant amount of work has been done on how to make, let's say, Spanish lawyers more American sounding, like more direct and
Oh,
more clear. So it's really interesting. But you teach people all over the world. Who would you say is, more disciplined to coach? Like, are there cultural differences that are like obvious in the approach of actors coming from different countries?
Oh, I'm throwing younger people here under the bus. I feel terrible. But this isn't always the case, kids, if you're watching. But I would say I'm always amazed when I work with a European student, especially a teenager. They are so educated and so disciplined. Their reading comprehension is off the charts. And reading comprehension, especially these days in acting, is so very, very important. It's very hard sometimes to understand the words on a paper. Like there are times I don't understand it. Somebody comes to me for coaching and I'll open the door and I'll say, you know what, I really don't understand your audition. And they'll say, neither do I. And I say, well, come on in. Let's go over it together. I read everything out loud, all the stage directions. They read their part. And together we have to put together two heads, figure out some of these scripts. So if you're a good student, if you're a good English student, I mean, as far as writing and reading comprehension, which a lot of European students really are, and they're quite disciplined about how they do their homework, I kind of think they have a leg up.
Yeah, as someone who's taught English, I couldn't be happier to hear that that reading is like so foundational. But I was on a set once, and an actor showed up and delivered a line, and clearly couldn't pronounce or understand one of the words, and we all
Mm.
looked at her with like in disbelief. And I was then told her what it meant and how to pronounce it.
You know what? A tip for that, since we're talking about it, I'm a big, big believer in writing things out phonetically. So when I have a student who's really stuck on a word, I'll repeat the word to them and I'll say, now, how would you spell it?
Oh.
And then they tell me how they would spell it. And then I write it out for them on their script and I say, now say it. And they nail it.
I've actually done it where I'll put like arrows like up if it's like if I'm really
Yep,
excited, or like I'll
that's
write like deliver this excited or sad or curious, and
correct.
um, that's great. Now, so with you've taught a lot of young people.
Right.
Do you like see sparks? Like you're like this person's gonna be a star. Like this is the next Tom Cruise. Like, do you have feelings like that with people when you're teaching these new young actors?
I am so incredibly bad at that. I could never be a manager, an agent, a casting director. I will say what I do notice. I do notice when somebody's super talented, and I do notice when they have that extra je ne sais quoi. Um, but I have had students who I never thought would amount to anything, and they became big, big, big. So just tells you what I know. But sometimes somebody does come in and they just have it. They
Well,
just shine.
and related to that, I was thinking about like how things have really changed so that versatility might be the most important thing now because you have streaming, animation, social media, global projects. So how important is versatility, do you think?
I think it's the key to surviving in this industry right now, personally. I wish some of my students would have listened to me years and years ago when I said, you might want to consider voice acting as well as on camera. And they said, nope, nope, I'm an on camera actor. And I said, okay. And then strikes happened. Then work left LA. I mean, look, I don't mean, do everything. That kind of, what is that expression? Master of,
Master of like everything? No,
no,
when you're like good at like a lot of things, but you're a master of none.
master of none. Right, right, right. So I'm not suggesting that at all. But I do feel if you could be flexible and have a little versatility, there's drama, there's comedy. Um, this is a big one a lot of people won't do because they feel it's beneath them. Kid shows.
Wait, sorry, did you say like kids shows or hit shows?
kids, shows that are aimed for children. The audience could be preschool 2 to 5, could be 7 to 11. A lot of actors will come in, they just put their nose up to the part, and then they'll say, I love when they say this to me. This drives me crazy. They'll say, this isn't funny.
Wait, this isn't what? This isn't for me, or this isn't funny?
This isn't funny. And it's supposed to be a comedy. And I say, well, who's your audience? 8-year-olds. Well, do you believe that 8-year-olds will find it funny? Well, I guess. I'm like, that's who you're playing to. Stop with the judgment.
Yeah, I see
audience, right?
Yeah, I see the humility needed to do acting for kids. Like it can feel embarrassing for the adults, but parents will think you're a star. So at least
Kids
there's
think
that.
you're a star. Kids are the best audience ever. If anybody's watching and has a starring role for me in a kid show, I would gladly accept it. No, kids are the best audience. They will love you or hate you immediately. They give you immediate feedback when they think you're funny. Oh my gosh, I dare you to find a better audience than a bunch of laughing kids.
It's true. My best audience has been a bunch of laughing kids.
Yeah,
So.
they're the best.
Now, some of your students have worked with Steven Spielberg, J.J. Abrams, and Zendaya. Can you talk about maybe either a turning point story or coaching techniques that made the difference? Because that's great success.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I was in preparation. I was writing down some more names. I was like, I feel like once my students book, it goes out of my head. So I was thinking about all the people my students have worked with. I didn't come up with a big list because I can never remember. But yes, also my students have worked with Adam Sandler, Dakota and Al Fanning, Angela Bassett, Betty White, Kristen Chenoweth, Melissa McCarthy, lots of actors and actresses. And what was the question? Because now I got.
So the idea is a lot of your students have worked with
Right.
absolute stars. Can you share like a story? Like, because it's kind of interesting that you're coaching someone and then they get a role with Adam Sandler. Is there a story or either techniques that have worked?
Okay, this is a public story, or it was, so I don't feel I'm sharing anything secretive. So one summer, many years ago, I taught a family of 3 boys from Idaho. They were coming down, and in fact, they were one of my first Zoom students. But when they came here, the dad said, we're coming for the summer to audition. I'd like you to just do a little mini class with my 3 sons. And I was like, great. Oh, no, at that time, sorry, it was 2 sons. I said, great. The next summer, the dad called me and said, now my youngest son is coming down. I said, okay, great. So the youngest son had taken some classes, acting classes up in his area. And somehow he wound up getting an audition. There was a big open call at the time. If you don't know what open calls are for anyone in the industry, an open call is when they post that casting search everywhere online. They go to agents, they go to managers, but they open it up to regular people too. They'll say, looking for the next star, right? And they often find kids that way, often. So he winds up getting an audition for one of these big open calls. And he goes literally straight from the airport, straight from Burbank Airport to my studio. And we work on this audition. Now, here's the thing. This audition was very secretive, as in they wouldn't tell any of us what the project was. They wouldn't give us a script. We had no information. The sides they gave us, sides, SIDES, that's the sample scene they give you to audition with. The sides were actually from a long ago famous movie. We had nothing to go on. So what do? You do the best job you can, right? Well, he gets a call back. He wound up getting 11 callbacks for this film. We worked, I am not kidding you guys, we worked the entire summer. We worked June, July, August. I never knew what he was auditioning for. They did say there was kind of like maybe a supernatural element to it. I love, with young people, I love giving them films and TV shows from the past to watch, because I feel like, especially if they don't have life experience, they can relate to a scene maybe from a movie or a TV show. So I don't know why, but for some reason, every movie that came to mind that I wanted him to watch, for some reason, they were all Steven Spielberg films. I was like, oh, you have to watch Jaws for this scene, and you have to watch E.T. for this scene. And so after a whole entire summer of callbacks, he booked it. And the movie turned out to be Super 8, produced by Steven Spielberg and directed by J.J. Abrams. And that was my student at the time, Joel Courtney. Ironically, it was about 4 kids, and Joel was a current student, and one of the other kids was a former student of mine. And it had a young Elle Fanning in it, but the film really revolved around Joel's character, and it was from his point of view. But that was crazy. I had no idea what this project was, who it was for. You couldn't read the script. They wouldn't tell you anything. Every time you went to a callback, he said they just kept giving me improvs. And I'm like, tell me exactly what kind of improv. Exactly. And I would like try to get every bit of info out of him, so I could then do improvs with him and try to make it real for him. It was an interesting process, really.
That's great. And it leads me to my next question. So the next question is, also some students of yours have been nominated for Emmys and Children's Awards. So the question is like, what habits and traits help them reach that level? And I love improv. You love improv. Improv was a huge part of that success. Is it improv? And what else could it be that helps people be so successful like that?
Well, here's a little Hollywood secret. Sometimes people are really pushy and do incredible marketing campaigns and know some people, and that may help to get a nomination. It may not, because I've honestly seen people get nominations that way, and people get nominations just because they're super talented and they did a great job. So you never know. As far as the voting, and I won't share what I voted on, but I've been a voting member of several very big award shows, and in the end, it does come down to the best reel of work or whatever episode they're submitting.
Okay, great. Now, Hollywood can be intimidating, and I'm wondering, so you're a big part of your job is encouragement. So how do
Yes.
you encourage actors to dream big, stay positive, and manifest their goals? Like, especially with the actor that got the Spielberg, that's like the role, that was like a long campaign. You must have been like, what were you doing to motivate that to him? It's like, it's a good thing you got a call back, right?
Right. It's a matter of, because you can get discouraged. If you have that many callbacks, you can get discouraged. It might seem to your audience watching right now, it would be the opposite, but it's not, because you're like, oh gosh, give me the part already. I've been in 7 times, 8 times, 9 times, 10 times, but you have to tell yourself, okay, everything I'm doing must be right. They must like me. I'm on the right track. I have to keep going. And that brings me to, I really feel like part of the key to being a success in this industry, and especially in Hollywood, is having a balanced life. If your entire life is this industry, you're in trouble. And I've seen it, and it leads to great sadness and great depression, and it's very sad to watch. If you can have a full life, whether it's your spirituality, whether it's your family, other interests, family, kids, parents, siblings, I don't know.
Well, a
But
lot of it's out of your control too. You can do all the right things, and it's just not your, like it didn't align for whatever reason.
I know.
So that can add to it.
But that's why
Yeah,
you want to be so sure of who you are and have a life outside of the business.
totally. So then, what's the most important advice you would give aspiring actors today? When you're thinking about technique or mindset in the industry.
Mm, um, I would say don't let the praise go to your head or the criticisms go to your heart. That's a big one for me. That's very difficult, but I hope everybody takes that in. Don't let the praise go to your heart. The praise go to your head or the criticisms go to your heart, because this industry is a roller coaster. And I tell the following story quite a lot just because I feel it exemplifies Hollywood in a nutshell. There is a famous clip, you can easily find it, of Halle Berry looking stunningly gorgeous and winning her Oscar award. The very next year, she won the Golden Raspberry Award. That's for Worst Actress. So in 1 year, she went from Best Actress to Worst Actress. Why do I use that as an example all the time? Because it's up and down. You got to try to ride the waves. Ride the waves. That's a big piece of advice I have. And stay flexible and versatile.
I remember it reminds me of a story. I think it was Billy Connolly, but he might not be the only one. Where he was doing a show somewhere, and someone said, "Hey Billy, I read the review. You don't let him get to you. You're great." Apparently, a bad review was written, and he's like, "Oh, don't worry. I don't read the reviews." And then the guy telling him got offended, thinking that he was lying or that he was above negative. And so he made it a bit where he was like, no, like I don't read the reviews. I've realized that if I read negative, like if I read reviews, like it'll send me emotionally, and I don't have time for that. And so
Exactly. Who has time for that?
exactly. And then the idea that someone would be like, this was my moment of like telling you don't worry about it, like you can't ruin that for me, it to me is like a comedy scene. So I find that very funny. Um, so, Tracy, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your wisdom from acting techniques and voice and mastering mindset. You've given everyone really helpful insight. I love it. Direct from Spain in a way to Hollywood. So, thank you very much. And to you listening, thank you for listening. And we hope to see you in the next episode. So,
Bye, everybody.
thank
Thanks,
you.
Charlie.